I know you're gonna dig this.
Zooming in all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, Gene Poo Poo Man Anderson, pioneering grandfather of funk, rap, hip-hop, and R&B. Gene has worked with numerous artists. Gene has so much history in funk music. We would love for you to tell your story. Thank you, Poo Poo Gene, for being here with us.
His Honor, it's my pleasure, Mr. Ryan, to be here with you because you're such a beautiful person. And the mayor, too. Oh, how fantastic that makes me feel. My mother knows, if she knew I was talking to the mayor, she would say, son, you have arrived.
Well, you've won my heart. I'm the former mayor of Dayton, but I'm the first female mayor of Dayton, Ohio.
Well, one thing for sure is their loss.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to talk about you cover so many genres, and that's why they call you the grandfather of funk, rap, hip-hop, blues, and soul. And you've worked with artists like Curtis Blow. Tell me about working with Curtis Blow.
Well, as I said earlier on, Curtis Blow is a very personal friend of mine. We've been friends since his very first record, The Christmas Rap. I broke that record for him and got him started. And he just had a heart transplant. And he called me up after he had gotten his new heart and said, Gene, I got a heart transplant. I said, wasn't nothing wrong with your old heart because you got a beautiful spirit in it. But he's a very talented person. Matter of fact, we cut a record together called Serious Heavy Drummer sometime back in the 80s. And he's so talented that he did his entire part, which was a long monologue. Take one.
Take one.
That is extraordinarily
Phenomenal
unique.
man. Phenomenal man. To do that in one take.
A great person too.
And so you worked with the Sugar Hill Gang. Tell us about that experience.
Well, the Sugar Hill Gang, matter of fact, I was the first promotional man for Sugar Hill Records. Matter of fact, for rap records, period. I have a new book here that's it says The Birth of Hip Hop, the Gene Anderson story. It's about the Sugar Hill Gang. Matter of fact, the owner of the company was named Joe Robinson, Joe and Sylvia Robinson. They owned a prior company called All Platinum. And they was in litigation with the Moments, which ended up Ray Goodman and Brown. And so they wasn't able to go out and put out records under All Platinum anymore. So they came up with another label. And I had started a promotion firm in St. Louis called Middle West Record Distributors. It was with two Jewish guys, Skip Gorman and Harold Goldman. They went and got me to do the promotion, and they was starting up a new distributor. And nobody had ever heard of any rap, and Joe called me. I had gained a little small reputation as the guy could promote records and get them started in my area. And he had cut this record called The Rapper's Delight, but they didn't have no name for it. And they didn't know what to do with the record. So he called and asked to speak to me. I was enthused that Joe Robinson, because he had such a gigantic reputation as a record company owner and a celebrity, that I was just overwhelmed at the fact that he knew me all the way from New York to St. Louis to he asked to speak to me, and he said, listen, I got a record here, man. We don't know what it is. All I know is that we can't get it played, and I want to send it to you and see what you can do. And I said, okay, you send it overnight, airmail special. I got it, I opened it up, and it was an acetate. And the acetate is a record that's plastic that has steel in the middle of it. You know, they used to have acetates back in the day in order for you to be able to know what you're going to get before you press 1,000 or million records. So he sent me an acetate of the record, and I turned it on there, and it sounded like Chic. I said, man, this, when I first heard it, I said, this is Nile Rodgers' record, Chic. And then it said, the boy said, a hip hop, a hippity, a hip. I said, whoa. So I told him, I called him up. I said, Joe, I got the record. It looks like it's going to be a decent record, but the record is too long. It's 15 minutes long. He said, that's okay. He said, just do the best you can. And I took it over to a station called WESL, a radio in East St. Louis, Illinois. And it was my friend Jim Gates in the station. And he played it for me. He put it on, and he played it 2-3 times. And before you know it, the kids was coming in the parking lot, because you could hear the radio through the speakers. And the kids was coming in the parking lot, was dancing in the parking lot of the radio station. And I said, man, this is a smash record here. And it grew on from there. It's a lot of more stories concerning that Rappers Delight and the Sugar Hill Gang that we'll get into further on into the interview. But that's initially how it all started. Hip hop rap music started from that phone call.
You know, and when you, so to make it clear, I got to understand that the Sugar Hill Gang and the Rappers Delight, is that a slash, or are those two different groups?
No, that's one. The Rappers Delight was the name of the record.
Okay.
The Sugar Hill Gang was the artist of the record.
All right. Okay, I got it now. I got it. And
Okay.
and then you moved on. So why did you? Before I move on to some of the artists, the other artists that you worked with, tell us more about why did you do your book about the Sugar Hill Gang?
Well, basically, the book is about hip hop music.
Period.
But it was predominantly the Sugar Hill Gang was the first artist, because they was the first rap artist to record a successful record. I'll put it that way. And there was no such genre as rap music or hip hop music, because the word hip hop came from Wonder Mike. He said a hip hop, a hippity hop, and from the beginning of the Rappers Delight, and it just caught on, and people just always referred to it as the hip hop, and then it came to be a genre called hip hop music. People start to rap, and then the more records start to coming out of New York and New Jersey, from different artists and different labels from that area behind the success of the Rappers Delight.
But now you also work with Snoop Dogg?
Snoop is my friend. Matter of fact, Snoop Dogg, he's from the Dog Pound from out of Long Beach. And that was years and years and years later before Snoop Dogg and Death Row and all of that materialized with Suge Knight and Dr. Dre and all those guys, and it was years later. It was decades later before they showed up. But me and Snoop Dogg we're extreme friends. Matter of fact, I did a video with him called Cali is Active. It was him, Snoop Dogg, Nate Dogg, Warren G, Don Juan, Exhibit. Oh, it was a ton of West Coast rappers was on the video. It's you can look it up on YouTube. It's called Cali is Active, Snoop Dogg. You'll see me there. I got my little pink outfit. I'm trying to be beautiful.
So you also work with Grandmaster Flash?
Grandmaster Flash came third. He was the third act that came out of Sugar Hill. It was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It was Melly Mel, Scorpio, Duke Booty, Cowboy, and Raheem. I think that was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. They came out with a record called Happy Birthday. Was their first record, I think. And I broke it. I broke that. I broke The Message. I broke White Lines. I broke Wheels of Steel, Scorpio. All of their first records I broke. Matter of fact, all of the Sugar Hill's first records, the first artists that came out of Sugar Hill and Enjoy Records and Tommy Boy Records and Streetwise Records, I broke them first. After I broke the Rapper's Delight, my reputation grew internationally. And people was calling me from all over, wanting me to break their records because St. Louis had become a breakout market for hip-hop records, and it was a test market to know what a record would do on a national or international level. So they would send it to me by me being the primary force of promotions in that area. That's what this book is all about, the birth of hip-hop. It says, every word on this book is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And that's what this book is all about. It can be purchased at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. All you gotta do is go to GeneAndersonStory.com.
All right, now.
GeneAndersonStory.com, and you can get a copy of it, or you can get an audio book, or you can get what you want right there.
All right. Now, moving right along. Now that you gave your promotion for your book, we're going to move right on with your story. Tell me about your experience with the Gap Band.
With the Gap Band, well, we broke a record called Burn Rubber on Me. Lonnie Simmons was a friend of mine. He owned a company called Total Experience. And they had Charlie Wilson and his brothers, Charlie and Robert and Ronnie Wilson. They had a group called, they're from Tulsa, Oklahoma. They had a group called The Gap Band. And they had hits after hits after hits. But that one particular record, Burn Rubber on Me, I broke it first in America. I got it played on the radio, took it to the clubs, got it in the stores. And that's what breaking a record means. Promoting it first and getting it out there and getting the artists known. And I got them known, and we became very good personal friends in life until the group disbanded and Charlie went on his own and Robert died. Unfortunately, I loved him so much, the bass player, he died. And Ronnie, he went back to the Lord, he's preaching. So it's all good.
It's all good. And then, you know, you look too young to have in your bio working with Sammy Davis Jr. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I started out singing jazz. I sung jazz with Dizzy Gillespie and Duke Ellington, Jimmy Forrest, Gene Ammons, Eleanor Jacket, Jimmy McGriff, Lou Rawls. I started singing jazz because I was going with a girl and I was a little street corner doo-wop singer, doing a little Frankie Lymon stuff on the street corner. and a big boy stole her from me and had a job and bought a new Cadillac, and I had a bicycle. So I was heartbroken trying to figure out what am I gonna do. And she said, I said, yeah, well, I'm doo-wopping on the schoolyard today. Come over and see us. She said, I don't like that doo-wop no more. I like jazz. I said, what? I said, well, I'm gonna learn me some jazz and steal my girl back. So I bought some Sammy Davis records and some Dean Martin records, and I bought some Johnny Mathis records and Nancy Wilson records, and learned a few pop songs, and I got started singing jazz in the nightclubs and got so good with it that I'm drawing a line around the block. People want to see this little child prodigy singing jazz, bebop. So I was in high school, and a friend of mine named Fletcher Smith came to me and said, Gene, Dizzy Gillespie is coming in town. Him and James Moody is coming in town, and I'd like to introduce you to him because he's going with one of my sisters. I said, fine. So I went over there to see Dizzy Gillespie. And I stood around. The club was called George's, and I used to go over to George's and clean up the club at night in order to be able to get in there to see the jazz stars that was coming. Because I got enthusiastic with jazz, and I was doing pretty good with it. And I walks up to Dizzy Gillespie. Now, this is a story. I walks up to Dizzy Gillespie on the break. He's sitting at a table. He's sitting at a table with Fletcher and his girlfriend and a whole bunch of people, a big table. And Fletcher brings me over and introduces me to Dizzy Gillespie. He says to Dizzy, he said, this is Gene Anderson. He's an up-and-coming star around in this area, and he sings real good, and everybody wants him to sing with him. And I thought I'd introduce you to him. And I said, yes, Mr. Gillespie. Now listen, I said, yes, Mr. Gillespie. I said, yeah, I'm a little jazz singer around here, and I know all your music, and I'm one of your big fans, and I'd appreciate it if you let me sit in with you before your engagement is over and sing a couple of songs with you. He looked at me and he said, get the shit away from me. Every time I go in, there's some little sucker talking about he can sing or something. I don't want to hear that, and turned his back. I was so heartbroken, I didn't know what to do. So I say, I got ready to walk away. Then something told me, said, wait a minute, don't let him talk to you like that. And I turned back around, I said, let me tell you something, you old blankety blank. I'm probably better than you anyway. And I got ready to walk away. He said, come back here. I came back, he said, listen. He said, if you got enough nerve to talk to me like that, you come to the matinee Saturday, and I'm gonna let you sing. And if you can't sing, I'm gonna put my foot in your you know what. Okay, man, I left, I was excited. I was finna graduate, I was still in high school. I was finna graduate from high school. So anyway, I told everybody, I said, man, I'm finna sing with Dizzy Gillespie Saturday at the matinee. My mama bought me a black suit, shiny suit. I got my hair all processed. I'm immaculate. I'm going back to sing with Dizzy Gillespie. So I go back and he said, you ready? I said, yeah, I'm ready. And he told James Moody. He said, James Moody said, listen, Moody said, listen, you stay on the stand with him and see if he can see how he does. I got up on the bandstand and wore him out. I sang my butt off.
What did you sing? What did you sing?
I sung on Green Dolphin Street.
That was the name of the song?
Huh?
What was the name of the song that you sang?
On Green Dolphin Street.
Oh, on Green Dolphin Street. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I sung that song, and I sung another song. I sung Mr. Uptempo. And he said, listen, you come back tonight, I'm going to play with you. I came back that night, I got my other little suit on, man. I got my little ruffled shirt on, I got my bow tie. Oh, I got a picture of that. I got a picture of that around the house or somewhere. I'm awful spiffy, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I sang, and he said, listen, you want to go on the road with me? Dizzy Gillespie. He said, you want to go on the road with me? I said, man, I'm finna graduate from high school. I done messed up twice. My mama ain't having it. He said, well, I tell you what then, you meet me in Chicago this summer when you graduate and at Mr. Kelly's and on Rush Street, and I'll take you from there. And that's how that went. That's how I got really known as a jazz singer. I sang jazz all the way through the Army.
How long did you stay with Dizzy?
I didn't get to stay with Dizzy. I just went up there and did the show, and that was it. And from there on, I was gone. I won a talent show at a place called McKee's Fish Shoes in Chicago, which was the Jazz Central spot on 63rd and College Grove back in the day. And that gave me an opportunity to be the house singer. And I sung with a lot of big stars, Les McCann and J.J. Johnson, Eleanor Jacket and Red Sanders, and a lot of big stars, Gene Ammons, and you know, that was featured there at the club every week. They had a different star every week, and I was the singer over the summer holidays. So then, I wasn't thinking about Disney by then. I was off and running for the races then.
Okay, so tell me about your experience with the Temptations and the Doobie Brothers.
Okay, now the Temptations, I got out the Army. I cut a couple of little records. I got drafted during that time. I was out of high school 90 days. And before you know it, I was drafted going to Vietnam. I just that quick, bang, bang, bang. So I had to get off the stage there in Chicago, and I cut a record while I was in the Army called Tell Me That You Love Me, and Baby I Dig You. I'm the hottest thing on the Army post. I'm in Columbia, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Oh, man, they got little kids breaking in the Army post wanting to see me, and I'm a star. I'm in the Army. I'm in there with Bobby Rydell, Shirley Ellis. You know, she had a record called Name Game, Nana Nana, Bafana, Bafana. She's in the Army. She's a sergeant in the Army. We all in special service together. So I cut a record called Tell Me That You Love Me. Oh man, it's one of them hard throbs and records. It's one of them type of records, right? All of a sudden, I got fans coming on the Army base wanting to see me. Now I'm causing a problem to the Army because I got so many fans because they're playing my records all over the radio. Want to see me, and they was very prejudiced during them days.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was the 60s. It was the 60s, you know. So they was having sit-in demonstrations and riots in the streets and all kind of stuff.
Where were you stationed?
I was in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh my, okay.
And they was hardcore on blacks down there. And I had a white band. And so that was causing a controversy. I got a black dude, got a white band in the 60s when it was civil rights era was booming. And I had all these white kids that was coming, wanting to see me. So I'm having problems with the Army. So I finally, after it all boils down, to make a long story short, I get mustered out the Army. I get out the Army, and there's a guy by the name of Sam Gary. He had cut a record on Joda Records out of New York called For Your Love and Fly Me to the Moon. And they were #1 hit records on the Billboard chart. And him and his partner broke up. The group was called Sam and Bill. They broke up. So Bill never wanted to be with Sam, so Bill went back to Macon, Georgia, down there, Augusta, Georgia, with James Brown. And Sam, he wanted to start all over again and to do his thing with another Bill. So by me being so popular, he chose me to do the Bill. So I learned the songs and stuff, and we did the first little gig. Now I'm getting out of jazz. I'm jumping into soul music, R&B music now. And Sam teach me the songs, and we go to Durham, North Carolina, 182nd Air Force Base, their auditorium, and do our first gig. This is back in '66. We did the first gig, and the next thing I knew, the girls were screaming, "Oh, we love you, Billy!" And they are pulling on my clothes and stuff. I'm saying, now wait a minute, this is okay. This is better than the jazz. So I did so good with Sam. He said, listen, I got some more gigs up north on the East Coast, would you like to do these gigs with me? I said, yeah. I made $200 for that little bit of singing. I say, yeah, I'm glad to do it. I ain't knowing he making 2,000 or 3,000. So we go to Richmond, Virginia, and we hook up with a promoter, a big white guy promoter. He's promoting shows, and he has different stars on the show, but we headlined a bunch of these little small shows because we had 2 hit records, 2 #1 records. All of a sudden, we ends up in Washington, D.C. at the Howard Theater, and the headliner of the show was the Temptations. That was the true Temptations with Eddie Hendricks and David Ruffin and Paul and
Otis
and Melvin.
And Melvin.
That was the true Temptations. This is the true Temptation. And they was the headline of the show, and Junior Walker and the All-Stars had a record called Shotgun. Oh. Was the co-star. Then they had Mitty Collier, and they had a group called the Capitals. They had a record called Cool Jerk.
I remember. Yeah.
They was on the show, and Scoy Mitchell was the MC. And me and Sam was on the show with our hit record. And when we walked in through the back door for rehearsal, the Temptations was rehearsing. And they was arguing and fighting and arguing and fighting. I said, man, them guys ain't gonna never make it. I told Sam that. I said, them guys ain't gonna never make it because they can't get along with each other. There was a mess. It was a mess with them all the time. All the time, it was a mess with the Temptations. But they loved each other, but they always had dissension. And we did the first show, and it turned out pretty good. But Junior Walker was tearing them up brand new behind with that record. I'm a road runner, baby. And so they went back to Motown and called Motown and told them to send them a new record. They needed a new record. And they came out with a new record, the second show. We did 2 weeks there, 5 shows a day. That
5 shows a day?
5 shows a day.
How much you get paid for that?
I got $200. Sam wouldn't give up no more, but it was okay. I was riding free, living free, and I was fresh out the army. You know, I don't know nothing. This is before the Sugar Hill and all this. This way before that.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, they came out with a new record and rehearsed it, and they came out on the stage and said, I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. Ain't too proud to beg. I said, wow. That was the release of that record, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, in 1966 at the Howard Theater. And they stole the show back from Junior Walker.
Wow.
And that's how I met the Temptation. From then on, we was friends for years and years and years, even to today. Me and Dennis Edwards, we went to the same high school in St. Louis together. And he died not too long ago. And only somebody left is Otis.
I know.
Everybody else, me and David Ruffin, we was tight. We was really tight. Me and David Ruffin, we was really tight. He liked me.
You know, you hear so many different stories about David.
David was cool. David was a true star. He was a star then. He had star all over him then. They all had that aura, that star aura, but David had something that was special.
And we still talk about that till today, about when you go back and you look at the, you know, we want to call it the original Temptations, but there was another guy before David came about. But when you look at that, that was the highlight of the Temptations. And you know, one of the things that people think that some of the dissension was among that group, they just had too much talent and too much ego that made it so difficult for them to struggle. But they would walk out on that stage and there they'd be.
They would fight down, they'd tear the dressing room up. They'd tear the dressing room up. It's always dissension. But they would get up on that stage and they'd clasp hands and pray with each other. And before you know it, there was the Temptations. That was the ritual.
What about your experience with the Doobie Brothers? You know, the Doobie Brothers.
I met them when I was with Willie Mitchell. James Mitchell, the arranger for all those Al Green's records and the horns and the violins and all that. I was with High Records for 7 years with Al Green, and that's a big gap between it and there. But anyway, the Doobie Brothers, James Mitchell was their arranger, which was Willie Mitchell's brother from out of Memphis, Tennessee, at High Records. And he used to take me around them when they did some rehearsal stuff. I never did no gigs with them, but I knew them.
And they had influence did they have any influence in your music?
Nah. I was, to be truthful, it might sound egotistical, but I was so far advanced over them musically, it was unbelievable because my experiences had made me bigger than my opportunities.
Now, what about Cameo?
Cameo, I met them when I was with P-Funk on the road, on doing gigs with Cameo. I never did, I was part of their group, never was part of their group, but we used to do a lot of work on the East Coast together.
Tell me about the experience with you and P-Funk.
Well, P-Funk and me is closer to my immediate association musically than my original association with my development of my music. I met George Clinton in 1967. My son was just born and I cut a record called The Devil Made Me Do It. It was on a Westbound Records, and a friend of mine by the name of Alvin Cash, he had a record, he had a couple, 3 #1 records. Alvin Got a Boogaloo, Twine Time, Alvin, a bunch of Alvin. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I got those 45s, yeah, I know.
Alvin took me over there to meet Alma Maladia, who owned Westbound Records. And George and Ray Davis was in the office when we come through the door with our demo to try to make a deal with Westbound Records. And George and I was arguing with Alma trying to get some money. I say, Alvin, why would you take me over to this company, to these guys here, and they ain't paying these guys? Alvin said, shut up. You ain't got nothing to do with that. Let's get this money for this record here. So I shut up. And we sold the record for them and we got $10,000 back in the 70s, in 72. I'm no, in 69, 68. Yeah, 67, 68, yeah. It was called 67, we cut the record, 68 was right through. Yeah. That was a gang of money. $10,000. So we got the money and we took George and them. George came with us and we went to the hotel. Boy, we rambunctiously act the fool in this hotel. It was the Diplomat. It was the Diplomat Hotel. I think it was on Essex-Ford Expressway. We stayed there 3 days and nights. They was ready to call the police on us every 5 minutes. We were young and we just partied and partied and partied. We spent $4,000 of that $10,000 just partying and having a great time, youngsters. You know what I'm saying? We young, we 22, 23 years old. You know, we youngsters. And that's when me and George met. Next thing I knew, George had a record called I Want to Testify. He flew around there and looked up on his record with I Want to Testify. and they lost their uniforms. They was dressed like the Temptations and stuff back in the day. They was Parliament, and they was dressed like the Temptations, but they went and got Eddie Hazel and them and Billy Bass and them, and somebody stole their uniforms at the theater. And so they just wore their street clothes and some garbage bags and all kind of crazy shit. And when they come out on the stage, the people went crazy. And they never put them back on again. they so ever since then. And next thing I knew, we was hanging out together. We would see each other occasionally and hang out together. He come up with the Mothership. And when he came out with the Mothership, everybody was space crazy at that time because they had just gone to the moon and all that kind of stuff. And it caught on, and before you know it, he had blew up to God knows what. And he kept telling me, come on, Poo Poo, come on, get with me, man, come on, get with me. But I was doing fine. I was with Red Fox. I was doing fine. I was a Las Vegas star. I didn't care about no running around in no garbage bags on and chicken peppers and stuff. I wasn't kidding about that. I was wearing a tuxedo. Riding the limo. I'm doing fine. But I would go occasionally. I would go occasionally and sit in with them. And then somewhere along the line, things went full circle. And one day he came by my house, and this is back in 98, he came by my house and he said, hey man, I'm gonna stay over here with you a while. Cause he wasn't doing too hot at that time. And he stayed over there with my apartment with me, and we partied and we carried on and we carried on. And he said, listen, we got some dates. You want to go on these dates with us? I said, okay, I'll go with you. And I took off with him. I just bought a red Cadillac. And we jumped in a little group of red Cadillac, and we went to Phoenix, Arizona. And that's when I got in with him. And from there, we went to Detroit. Then we was going different. I'm running my little Polo Cadillac to death. And before I knew it, I was stuck. I come up with an act called I Want Some Hits, James Brown Hits. And it caught on. It came on. It's some videos up on YouTube of us doing that. And it seemed like it just lifted the whole P-Funk aura up. That particular segment in the show. And we started playing Better Places and stuff. And it started going up and going up and going up. Before you know it, we was back into the concerts again. And then he refined the act. He made different guys play with me and get a little routine and stuff. He got into it, and before you know it, we had a major act called I Want Some Hits. And next thing I knew, I was overseas. And next thing I knew, I spent 17 years with him. 17 years. And I still go back every now and then and do some P-funking, but once you P-funk, you'll never stop.
So how did Red Fox feel about you giving him up for some garbage bags?
No, well, see, Red Fox died.
Oh, okay.
Red Fox died. But what it was, Red Fox, I was with Red Fox before I got with George.
Okay.
Because, now that's a whole nother story, that Red Fox era with me. Because that came along shortly after that Sugar Hill stuff. I got with a prize fighter by the name of Sonny Liston. You ever heard of Sonny Liston?
Yes, I have.
Well, I got with a prize fighter named Sonny Liston. That's a whole nother book and a whole nother story. But he sent for me to come from St. Louis to Las Vegas. And he introduced me to Red Fox. And I was that little gopher boy. Red was from St. Louis, Sonny was from St. Louis, and I was from St. Louis. So Sonny introduced me to Red, and he told Red, if anything ever happened to him, to look out for me. Because Sonny loved me like I was his own son. He was my friend. It's a sad story on how his life ended up, but it was some pleasurable moments, it was some exclusive moments that I experienced with the association with Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston introduced me to Sammy Davis Jr., he introduced me to Frank Sinatra, he introduced me to Red Fox, he introduced me to all kinds of Johnny Mathis, all kinds of big name stars. I got to be away from the ragtag of the R&B soul stuff to the top of the pile of the pop level and being a Las Vegas act. I co-starred the show with Red Fox for 7 straight years at the Hacienda, the Sahara, and the Landmark Hotel here in Las Vegas. And I was the co-star. It's a video up there on YouTube about me with Red Fox. It's called Gene Anderson and Red Fox at the Hacienda. It's on YouTube. And Red, when Sonny died, well, I say he died, because we all know what that situation was concerning Sonny. It's still to this day, it's a mystery about what truly happened to Sonny. God bless him. He loved me. I loved Sonny. He was like a father to me. And I went to the funeral, and I helped carry the casket. Me, Joe Louis, a bunch of big name mafioso guys, we carrying the casket to Sonny in the thing. So me and Sonny Liston had cut a record called I'm a Lover, because he was through fighting just about, and he was we cut a record on Palomino records called I'm a Lover, and we was getting the movies. We was going to the movies. We went to a casting agency called Page Park Independent Casting in Hollywood, and we was finna get in the movies, and everything we was going with Eddie Sullivan's show, and Sonny ends up getting murdered. He ends up getting killed, put it that way. They said one thing, but it's still controversial about what happened. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, I was in St. Louis. But I'm just saying, I goes to the funeral and I sees Red. This before he does Cotton Goes to Holland, this was before he does Sanford and Son and all that. I sees Red and I'm crying, I'm saying, Red, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I done blowed my career, I done blowed my rock and roll career going off with Sonny. I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do now, man. He said, that Sonny's dead. I told him all the stuff was going on. He said, well, listen. He said, this is a dangerous situation. You know something you ain't got no business knowing, or you don't know something and everybody think you know it, or you do know something and it's too big for you. You go back home and you cool out a while, because this town is too hot for you. After this is at Sonny's funeral. This is after we left Sonny's funeral at the you know, when you do the Passover,
the repast.
You know, yeah, the repast, right. And we was at the Hilton Hotel. Elvis Presley had just gotten there. And we was at the Hilton Hotel, and he says, he said, here's $100. He said, go home, and he went in his breast pocket, and he pulled out a picture, and he said, as long as this guy's living, you got me, you got somebody. And I turned the picture over. I said, Red, this is just a picture of you. He said, ain't I somebody? That's exactly, I'll never forget exactly what you just said. Ain't I somebody? I said, yeah, okay, Red. And I stayed away for 15 years. In between there, I had a whole nother career with Willie Mitchell and Al Green now. That came up. But 15 years later, Red ends up a superstar. He does Cotton Comes to Harlem. Norma Lear and them sees him, finds an old sitcom from over in London, England, and retools it and ends up with Sanford and Son. He ends up, Fred Sanford, he's #1 on television. This is my man from Sonny Liston. This is my man, I'm that little boy. He comes to St. Louis, they name a street after him called Red Fox Lane. And I sees him, he says, well, come on back to Vegas. I came back to Las Vegas and I brought a big show from St. Louis. We all left St. Louis and came back to Las Vegas. A group called Paper Bag and Company. And we had the band, we had the comedian, we had that, and I was doing a little stick called The Magic Blues Man. I got a baton in my hand like Cab Calloway. I got my hair all processed and stuff, and I'm wearing tails and tuxedos and stuff. And they get jealous, and they sneaks off and get a gig and leaves me in the hotel. I ain't got no gig. I said, man, why y'all do that to me? They said, well, man, you know, you getting too much action and we ain't getting no action because I'm killing them. So anyway, we go into a little club called the Blue Orchid, the Blue Angel or something like that. And the Blue Angel and some guys from the west side, the black side of town, heard about us over at this little dinky club and go and get us. They say, but where's the guy with the long hair and the baton? And they say, well, he's in the room sleep. This is the truth. They say, he's in the room sleep. They say, go get him. They come wake me up. I goes over there and they tell me who that is. I do the act. And they say, listen, we'll take y'all over to the west side with us at a place called the Town Tavern. That was a premier black club during the time of segregation. It was going downhill, you know, but because the integration had killed all that stuff on the west side. And within a week, we had a line wrapped around the block in the rain. We had been set them on fire. And I ran into this guy, Jones, who used to be Sonny Liston's trainer. He's now the security for Red Fox. He was over there playing poker. We get to talking.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, we get to talking, and he says, Red is coming in town. Does he know you in town? I said, no, man, I would like to see Red because I don't want this gig over here on the west side. I want to get over on the strip. He takes me and he go and get Red Fox from the airport. Red's riding in a little two-seater red Mercedes, and we riding in the Sanford and Sons truck. Yeah, we riding Sanford. So we see each other, we start racing down the highway. We get to Red's house. He grabs me and hugs me and kisses me and stuff. He was so glad to see me because I done came back to Vegas behind the Sonny Liston affair. And I told him the story about what the guys had done to me and stuff. He said, well, listen, you come down to the Hacienda tomorrow. We opening up tomorrow, and I'll let you do a little spot number. And if you still got what I thought you had from when you was a kid, I'll put you on. I say, fine. We goes to the show. We get down to the Hacienda Hotel. I got my uniform on, and everybody's acting like all the rest of the show. We got a big review. The orchestra and everything. Everybody's acting like they Superman. Everybody's superstar but me. You know what I'm saying? So Jones tell Prince Spencer, who was the president of the Red Fox Corporation, who was the lead dancer of the 4 Step Brothers, tap dancer Step Brothers, that Red said put me on, he wanted to see my act. Prince said, man, I'm not gonna take your word for it. Told Jones, said, I'm not gonna take your word for it because this is a top-notch, this is a premiere show, and I don't know nothing about this boy, you know? So anyway, I go to I stand in the wings. Red comes in, slaps me on the hand, goes on stage, does his thing, and he comes out and says, how did you do? I said, I didn't do nothing. I just stood there and nobody called me on. He told Prince, he said, listen, did Jones tell you to put this kid on? Jones said, I told him, he said, well, man, he said, Red, this is a big time show here. And a premiere show, I can't just put somebody on there like that. He said, well, listen, I want him on here, I want to see him. And if I don't get to see him, everybody fired. So what? He said, everybody fired. And he said, matter of fact, I want him to come on just before I come on. Prince said, that's the co-star spot, Red. You don't want to take no chance on this kid. Don't matter, know nothing about him. He said, it's my show. If you don't do it, everybody fired. He walked out the place. He called me over to the side, gave me $100 and say, take them finger waves out your hair. I want your hair to be long and straight. I go over there, the next day I go over there and the guy says, ladies and gentlemen, I never forget to say, ladies and gentlemen, Red Fox is known for helping out up and coming young talent. How about a round of applause for the first time on anybody's Las Vegas stage, Gene Poo Poo Man Anderson. I ain't had no rehearsal, I ain't had nothing. I just called a song and told the band directors the song, they knew the song, and came out there and got a standing ovation. Standing ovation. I was so nervous, I was shaking just like Don Knotts.
Now,
so anyway, Red kept me.
For 7 years.
For 7 years. I co-started, I got flyers and pamphlets and all kind of stuff with Red Fox. As a matter of fact, here's a picture right here. Me, Red Fox, and Slappy White. You see it?
Yes, I do. That's a good picture.
Yeah, that's a picture of me, Red Fox, and Slappy White.
You know,
we took it that day I did my first show.
Now you brought something up that I have to ask the question. How did you get the name Poo Poo Man?
Well, to a beautiful lady like you, it's an experience, not an explanation.
Whoa. All right. Okay. I'll accept that. I also understand, moving right along, I also understand that you have a wine or champagne after you, or you.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about it.
Here it is right here. It's got my picture on it.
All right. What's the name of it?
It's called Gene Anderson Sparkling Wine of the Stars. If you feel like a star, then drink like a star. Drink Gene Anderson Sparkling Wine of the Stars, a.k.a. the Shampoo Poo. That's my promo.
I understand. One of the things I want to ask you is that, what do you think what does funk mean to you?
Funk is, you do the best you can, then funk it.
And my second question is, why do you think it's important that we have a Funk Music Hall of Fame?
Well, one reason I think it is because funk is a genre just like hip hop. It's a type of music that is hard with a feeling. It's got fantastic beats to it. It's almost it's a type of music that it's got so much feeling in it, and it's got rhythm in it. It's got a big bang to it. Even if it's fast or slow, it's got experiences in it. It's a derivative of the blues. is a derivative of the blues. Because the early funk music was taken from the licks under Lightning Hopkins and Elmo James and Jimmy Reed and Muddy Waters. That ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's always been funk music. You know, since modern music materialized electronically, it's always been funk music, but it became a name and a genre. Funk actually was a jazz term. Old jazz guys like Charles Parker and Gene Ammons, they used to call it, let's funk it up. And a guy named Dyke from a group called Dyke and the Blazers really brought it to the mainstream, as I understand, with a record called Funky Broadway. Wilson Pickett covered the song, but it was originally done by a dude named Dyke. And he brought that word funk out there and took it from the jazz conception of the word funk. And they took the record off the radio because of the word funk. But the record was so strong and so big, they had to put it back on the radio. And it was the sounds of every town I go in, there's a main street, funky, funky Broadway. I got another voice too.
You know, Gene, what are your future plans?
Well, my future plans is to continue to praise God. First of all, that's my first. I'm a known fire-spitting Baptist. I love God because I know the difference. I know the difference. I know the difference in accepting God and depending and believing in Him. It's two different things. Yeah. I know God is real. That's the first thing. He is so real. I've almost died several times, and He's pulled me through. Mm. I've had the worst experience in my life and some fantastic things in my life, and He's made me survive them all. That's the first thing, is to praise God consistently till I go out the back door. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm gonna write some more books. I got several books in me that I think that is worthy of writing. I write science fiction books. I write children's stories, and I write experiences in life books. This is the first book, this Birth of Hip Hop book here. This is the first one that I ever had published and put out, and it's taken its place in prominence. I got a friend by the name of Darius McCrary. He's an actor. He played Eddie Winslow on the Family Matters. He's producing my documentary of this book and the movie. Okay. They're gonna do a movie on the birth of hip hop.
You know what, Gene, that is so exciting. And I just want to thank you so much for being with us today and wish you the best on everything that you're doing, and may God continue to be the head of your life. This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Funk Chronicles. Until the next time, keep it funky, funky, funky. Thank you, Gene.
Make it funky. I love you, baby.
The devil made me do that.
life one more time. If I could do it all over,